because first thing is that they don't sleep well at night. Secondly, because of mouth breathing, they get tired soon, there is headache, brings annoyance in them, their concentration goes down in their work. In children, we especially see that they are drowsy in school, so it affects their scholastic or academic growth or development, and their work would definitely go down because basic oxygenation is less. The diagnosis of allergic rhinitis is basically a clinical diagnosis. We do not advise, at least in our practice in ENT, I don't think anybody advises the skin allergy tests or RAST or the IG levels, which obviously would be high. So the diagnosis is written on the face of the patient. The patient comes and sits in front, we know that this patient has allergy because there is a certain shine on the face, it's like an allergic shine. Secondly, in children especially, you find they give you a salute, what is called as an allergic salute. The child will be rubbing the nose and that is an allergic salute. Constantly by trying to clean the nose, there is a horizontal line or bridge on the bridge of the nose which is called as the Darier's line. And these patients who suffer from allergy make various grimaces on their face. They try to clear up their nose or they try to open up their nose by certain expressions. So these grimaces which are seen on the face itself tells us that the patient has allergy. This is on just seeing the patient's face. Now when we examine the nose from inside, the mucosa is edematous, the turbinates are hypertrophied. On seeing the throat, there may be presence of polyps if it's a long-standing allergy. On examination of the throat, there may be postnasal drip, there would be pharyngitis, and the diagnosis is established with this. The discharge from the nose is always watery, copious bilateral watery discharge, and the diagnosis is made by this. We really speaking don't do any diagnostic tests. The diagnosis is in front of us. It's basically more of a theoretical or an academic exercise to do a diagnostic test. First, most important in allergy is environmental factors, that is avoidance. Avoidance of the allergen. The moment if you can identify and avoid a certain allergen, it is wonderful, the whole problem is solved. But most of the time we do not know what it is and it's not possible to avoid because not only house dust mites, the safest place where the patient comes in, being in the bedroom, totally closed, lying in the bed is one of the most dangerous places. So therefore it's very difficult to come away from allergy, that because even in the bedroom one will find dust mites. There will be an air conditioner which is the best breeding point for an allergen like fungus because it has a filter where the air is moistened, wet, humid air, very good for fungus to grow. So there is no safe place and it's obviously very difficult to eliminate or avoid all factors. But ideally I would prefer to avoid, and avoidance would be the first line of treatment. If with avoidance the patient does not get benefit, next would be to use a non-sedative antihistamine. With a non-sedative antihistamine, if the patient is not fully relieved, I would add intranasal corticosteroid, a nasal spray, that is topical corticosteroids. If with that also the patient does not improve, next we go on to add an oral steroid, and finally if there is no response to the combination, patient would require surgical approach. Basically we call it acute. I mean, when the patient comes with acute rhinitis, it's usually up to 3 weeks, that is supposed to be acute rhinitis. Then it goes into the next stage from maybe 3 weeks to 3 months, and beyond 3 months if this persists, it goes into chronic rhinitis or chronic sinusitis. About antihistamines, I mean there are various groups of antihistamines you must have heard of. We have first generation, second generation, third generation antihistamines. Now you must have just heard of third generation antihistamines, but good number of our seniors still use the first generation antihistamines. It's like you'll find Fiat on the road, with Maruti is also running, and you have Honda and Skoda also on the road. So basically these first generation antihistamines like chlorpheniramine, where evil is quite synonymous with, they are highly potent, but the problem is that the multiple dosing is required. You require to give it thrice a day to the patients. Since it crosses the blood-brain barrier, it causes sedation, and a lot of these anticholinergic effects like drying are quite distressing to the patient. And therefore we go into the second generation of antihistamines, where the duration of action becomes longer, but certain limitations as far as using them with other drugs, especially like terfenadine, etc., where you cannot use it with ketoconozoles or macrolides, and cardiac problems like prolonging of QT interval restrict the use of the second generation. And what we now use is the third generation antihistamines, where once a day usage is done. They are non-sedative, because we always talked of quality of life, how the patient would be at work, how the patient would perform, and these third generation antihistamines are preferred for that reason, usually given for a period of 3 weeks when the patient comes to us. We write it for 3 weeks and tell the patient whenever you require it, you can take it, because there is a very wide safety margin, as far as the dosing is concerned, and since there is no drug interaction, patient can take these medications SOS also. In allergy, whenever there is an allergen that strikes, there is an immediate and a late phase response, and the late phase response is countered by the anti-inflammatory effect. So the long-term effects as far as allergy should be under control would be important as far as this anti-inflammatory action is concerned. Especially if rhinitis sinusitis is persisting for over 3 months. Secondly, if it actually forms a polyp, or then we get a CT scan done and we see if the osteomeatal complex is blocked or not. I would like to just show it to you over here. Now, if this is the nose, we have the maxillary sinuses, we have the orbit, we have the ethmoid sinuses. Now, the nose is lined by the respiratory epithelium. The same respiratory epithelium gets into the sinuses also. The respiratory epithelium is lined by cilia. The cilia beat at a constant fashion, and every 20 minutes the sinuses get cleared of the mucus. So, all the mucus from the sinuses gets cleared from the osteomeatal complex every 20 minutes. We do not have to blow our nose every 20 minutes. So, if this osteomeatal complex is blocked by a polyp, or by even a deviated septum, or by any other fungus ball or whatever, then the patient goes into chronic sinusitis, because there will be accumulation of fluid inside leading to secondary infection and chronic sinusitis. So, there whatever antibiotic, decongestant, anything added along with an antihistamine will not help, and what we require is we go endoscopically, open the natural ostia and allow the natural drainage. So, this mucociliary clearance of the sinuses is to be established, and that is the key or the essence to nasal sinus endoscopy, where a surgical intervention would be required. After surgical management, we keep the patient for 3 weeks on an antihistamine and a nasal spray, so that the lining which comes is healthier, it is without any inflammation, and the sinus ostia remains patent. So 3 weeks post-operative we use an antihistamine